Welcome back to another video. It's your favorite math professor here, Dr. Tarcia Hubert. And in this video, we're going to talk about how to solve quadratic functions or equations using the quadratic formula. Okay, in the last video, we talked about solving quadratic equations, but we did it by factoring. But the thing about factoring is that every quadratic equation cannot be factored, okay? The quadratic portion of it cannot always be factored. However, the quadratic formula will work every time. So even if you can't remember how to factor, you can always use the quadratic formula, all right? So first of all, let's revisit what is a quadratic equation. A quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal 0, all right? The highest exponent is 2, there's one variable, and there's an equal sign. That's how you know it's a quadratic equation. Now, before you solve a quadratic equation, you always want to get 0 on one side. All right, now the method that works every time is the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is derived from solving this quadratic equation in general form ax squared plus bx plus c using the completing the square. All right, you can do completing the square if you know anything about that, and you can derive the quadratic formula. So what is the quadratic formula? I like to teach my students the song, okay? There's a song that goes to it, or there's a tune that goes with it that'll help you remember it. Now for me, there are a lot of songs out there, but for me, when I was a kid, I was used to the ice cream truck riding around the neighborhood. Are y'all familiar with the ice cream truck? And it would play different tunes. It would just be instrumentals. And one of the tunes it would always play is Pop Goes the Weasel. It said dun 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 dun. Look, I didn't even know the words. All I knew was Pop Goes the Weasel. But anyway, there is a song for the quadratic formula that goes to that tune that I like to teach my students just because it will help you remember that formula. All right, and so I guess you want to know it. So here you go. All right, it goes like this. X equal negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, I'm going to sing it again for you. Here we go. X equal negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, we're going to sing it one more time, and y'all going to sing it with me. All right, here we go. Last time. X equal negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, that is the quadratic formula, and it works every time. So now let me show you how it works. Okay, in this first example, we're going to solve 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. First of all, you have to recognize that this is a quadratic equation. How do you know? Because the highest exponent is 2. The highest exponent on that variable is 2. There's one variable, which is x, and there's the equal sign. The equal sign makes it an equation, all right? So since it is a quadratic equation, we know we can solve it. We could try to factor, but in this case, we're going to solve it by using the quadratic formula. Before we can use the quadratic formula, we have to identify the a, the b, and the c. Well, remember, the form of the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So your a is the number in front of the x squared, or the coefficient in front of the x squared, which is 2. Your b is the coefficient in front of the x, which is 3. And your c is the constant term, which is at the end, which has no variable associated with it, which is negative 2. Once you have identified your a, b, and c, now it's just a matter of plugging it into that quadratic formula. All right? And you might have to screw it, which is slow it down, just so you can write the numbers in it, all right? So it goes a little something like this. X equal negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, so I've plugged in every a, every b, and every c. Once you do that, the rest is just simplifying it, okay? So I end up with x equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9. And then for that second part, that's negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8, and negative 8 times negative 2, which is a positive 16. And then 2 times 2 is 4. And so we end up with x is equal to -3 plus or minus the square root of 25, because 9 plus 16 is 25, all over 4. All right. Now, the square root of 25 is 5, okay? So we're going to replace that with a 5. That's going to become -3 plus or minus 5 all over 4. So that's really two separate answers, and I'm going to bring it up here. That's going to be x equal to -3 plus 5 over 4. That's the first answer. And the second one is x equal to -3 minus 5 over 4. All right. -3 plus 5 is 2. 2 over 4 reduces down to 1/2. So that's your first answer. All right. And this one is -3 minus 5, which is -8. -8 over 4 is -2. That will be your second answer. So you end up with two answers on this equation, x equal to 1/2 and x equal to -2. But that is how you will solve that quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. All right. I know it was a lot, but if you can follow me step by step and just go with the flow, then you should get it. Let me know if you have any questions. All right. Let's look at one more. Okay, in this second example, we want to solve 3x squared minus 2x equal -1. All right. First of all, we have to be able to recognize that this is a quadratic equation. How do we know? The highest exponent on the variable is 2. That makes it quadratic. All right. There's one variable, which is x. There's an equal sign, which makes it an equation. And so therefore, we have a quadratic equation. Now, remember in the beginning, I said before you can solve a quadratic equation, you have to have 0 on one side. And in this case, we don't have 0 on one side, but we can easily get 0 on one side by moving that -1 over to the other side. So we're going to add 1 to both sides so that we can get 0 on one side. And we end up with 3x squared minus 2x plus 1 equal to 0. All right. So now we have the quadratic equation in the right form. And so now we can solve it, and we're going to use the quadratic formula. So I need to first identify my A, my B, and my C. In this case, A is 3, B is -2, and C is 1. All right. And so now we can plug those in to that quadratic formula. So y'all remember the song? X equal -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, and so we end up with a -2. Those two negatives, when you multiply them, they become positive. So that's a +2 plus or minus the square root of -2 squared is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. All over 2 times 3, which is 6, okay? And if we simplify what's underneath the square root, that gives us 2 plus or minus the square root of -8, all over 6. Okay, so now we need to simplify the square root of -8. So I'm going to come over here to the side and work on simplifying the square root of -8. First of all, the square root of a negative is equal to I. So we're going to pull out that negative and make it an I. So this is I square root of 8. But you can simplify a radical or a root by checking to see if there is a perfect square or a product of a perfect square underneath that root. Our perfect squares are 1, 4, 9, 16. Those are your integers squared, okay? And if you notice, 8 is a product of 4. 4 is a perfect square. So that's 4 times 2. Well, the square root of 4 is 2. So we can pull out that square root of 4, which is 2. And I'm going to write it in front of the I. And so that gives me 2i square roots of 2. All right. And so that is what the square root of -8 equals. So I'm going to come and take this part right here. And I'm going to rewrite that as 2 plus or minus 2i square roots of 2 all over 6. And then that separates into, whenever you have a fraction, you have to break it up. Because it's a complex number, it has to be in the form of a plus bi. So you separate each part. That's 2 over 6 plus or minus 2i square roots of 2 over 6. That 2 and that 6 can be reduced. 2 goes into both of those, so that becomes 1 over 3 plus or minus, that's a 3, I square root of 2 over 3. All right. And so that's really two separate answers. That's 1/3 plus I square root of 2 over 3. And that is 1/3 minus I square root of 2 over 3. So those are your two answers, okay? And so these, I know it's pretty long because you have to go step by step. But if you just take your time and break it down and go step by step, you should be able to come up with those. Most of the times it's two solutions, but it can be one solution also, okay? And so let me know if you have any questions about anything that I did here. It's a lot of steps, but just try to go through and understand step by step, all right? Now remember, I also have a free course that you can sign up for, and you can go on there and practice some more of these problems, which will help get you ready for that TSI test, okay? So if you haven't signed up for my free course already, then go ahead, read the description and get the information so you can sign up and go ahead and do some more practicing. And if you need help with anything, don't hesitate to send me an email, all right? So thanks for watching. If these videos are helping you, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And I will see you all in the next video.